بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Yeah, we'll start now.
إن شاء الله توكل على الله.
يلا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Dear guests, colleagues, and respected partners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. It's a real pleasure to have you all with us today in this online session, which it will explore the role of zakat in social balance and justice. We will talk today, inshallah, about how zakah can play a very important role. We will explore and talk and discuss and learn together how zakah can play a very important role in social balance and justice, and how we can work together towards a collective approach for its administration within international aid. Before we begin, just a few practical notes. This session is being recorded, and the video will be available on our website and channels. Live Arabic translation is provided. So if you go to the Arabic channel in the interpretation option, you will find the Arabic translation available. Subtitles are also available in multiple languages so that everyone can access and benefit from today's discussion. As we are talking about zakah, pillar of Islam, we will start the program with recitation from the Holy Quran.
الصوت. صوت ما فيش صوت.
I'm trying to solve this. Yeah.
I can read it.
Yes, Dr. Hani, please read it.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إنما الصدقات للفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم وفي الرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل فريضة من الله والله عليم حكيم. Surah Tawbah 60. Zakat expenditure are only for the poor and the needy, and for those employed to collect zakah, and for bringing hearts together for Islam, and for freeing captives or slaves, and for those in debt, and for the cause of Allah, and for the stranded traveler, an obligation imposed by Allah, and Allah is knowing and wise. Thank you.
Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Hani. I'm sorry for that technical mix-up. Let me briefly introduce WAF, the World Humanitarian Action Forum. Is an initiative that brings together humanitarian and development organizations to encourage effective collaboration with local actors, enabling better service for affected communities. WAF achieves this mainly through facilitating discussions, forums, and trainings. Now, inshallah, let's start our program. We will start by welcoming Dr. Hani al-Banna, founder and president of WAF, who continually reminds us that humanitarian work is not just about service delivery, but it's also about building meaning, institutions, and hope. Dr. Hani, welcome.
Alhamdulillah, Rasulullah. Thank you very much, Sister Fatima. I will start by referring back to World Humanitarian Summit in Istanbul in 2016. I've been saying this for the last nearly 10 years, where United Nations decided to collect zakat from the Muslim communities. This was one of the outcomes of the Muslims without actually having a proper consultation of the people who were in the steering committee at that time. We were surprised at this conference 2016 in Istanbul, and we have to deal with the fact that actually they started to take opinion of some ulama. When I met one of the UN staff, he told me I have 16 fatwa. The fatwa is based on the Muslim charities cannot transfer money because there's problem of the risk with the banking. Second point is the United Nation will take the money actually without taking out from it administration cost. Number three is actually it will be given to the Muslims. This is what they told the ulama, and the ulama, 16 of them approved that. But zakat is not about transaction only. Zakat is about building community and building the resilience of the community. Last point which I would like to talk, why United Nations is interested in collecting zakat, and why actually some of the non-Muslim charities, humanitarian organizations are collecting zakat. There are some people among the Muslim community who are giving wrong, absolutely wrong estimate and not based on research studies of the global amount of zakat. It goes to 1 trillion, it goes to billions, it goes to millions. Nobody knows. Unfortunately, those individuals, my opinion is, please shut up. Don't talk too much unless you have a proper calculation of the zakat globally. Actually, that's why, because the United Nations has a deficit in its budget, they are trying to tap into the zakat, and this is how it started. So today, inshallah, we should look at the third pillar of Islam, which is the deen. Zakah is not just a transaction. Zakah is a deen or a part of the deen that based on it would like to build the local community and build bonding between different community in our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hani. Thank you. Next, we hear from Imam Qasim, Chairman of Al Khair Foundation, one of our close partners advancing the impact of Zakah in communities around the world. Please welcome Imam Qasim.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته إن الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على نبي المصطفى وبعد. Apologies if there is interruption in the connection because I just literally arrived from South America, and as soon as I landed I was asked to go to Indonesia. So from one part of the world to the other extreme part of the world. I'm in taxi and my flight is in about 1 hour and 30 minutes from now. First of all, Dr. Hani has very rightly addressed the biggest challenge we are facing as Muslim organizations. That mainstream organizations, they saw basically the opportunity in collecting zakat and so on. And that's why they have basically transformed their fundraising ideology and so on. One of the key reasons for that is that majority of Muslim businessmen and royal families around the world, when it comes to donation, they stick to their zakat only. So they give their zakat. Majority of the businessmen I personally interact with, any project they want to do has to be zakatable. So they are not like general public where they go into sadaqah and general donation or like that. Mainstream donors, they are basically keen to discharge their zakat only. And that's why basically UN, United Nations, and UNRWA, and all the wings, and even Christian Aid and Oxfam and Save the Children, all of them coming there with the ideology of zakat collection and so on. My take on this is we need to go one step back. Zakat is very, very, very important spiritual and religious obligation that many of us, even in charity sector, we tend to take it very lightly. Come on, we are dealing with one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Zakat is fundamental pillar of Islam. It's just like Shahada, Salah, Hajj, Saum. Is similar to that. How much emphasis we give on Tawheed, how much preparation we do for Hajj, how we look after Ramadan, how we take care of our Salah. But when it comes to zakah, why there is such, you can say, easy approach to it, in terms of giving, in terms of basically assessing it, passing responsibility, and so on. So zakat is very essential and is very holy and very religious step. And one of the requirement, ideally, for zakat is that it needs to be spent on Muslims. So if something needs to be spent on Muslims, then it needs to be administered and managed by Muslims. Right? The reasons they're coming with, I've spoken to our common friends in UN because they employed some of the Muslim advisors, and I've spoken to them, and they say that when you construct masjid, if you give a contract to non-Muslims, it's fine, isn't it? When you go for Hajj, you book travel plans and this and that through non-Muslim company or non-Muslim airline, that's okay also. So why here zakat basically being administered through non-Muslims, why shouldn't be okay? I mean, there is difference between construction of a building or purchasing a ticket, right? The simple thing is that would we say that, okay, our salah, to lead our salah, we can have a non-Muslim imam, or to lead us through tawaf and umrah, we can have non-Muslim tour guide, or basically for our fasting, we can have non-Muslim person reciting dua, or non-Muslim person reciting takbir at the time of zibah, and so on. No, it is essential, and it is one of the requirement that it has to be Muslim. In case of construction of masjid, nobody has objected that it can be basically constructed by Muslims or non-Muslims. Anybody can do construction. But when it comes to expenditure of zakah, the specification is given. So that's why it's very, very important that we as community and as organizations, as individual donors and so on, stand up for it and make sure that we do not take it lightly. There is one ruling in Arabic, and that ruling is called إذا وقع الاحتمال بطل الاستدلال. When there is doubt, when there is uncertainty, then any evidence, any dalil you bring is invalid. إذا وقع الاحتمال بطل الاستدلال. So there is ihtimal in here that non-Muslims, how can they administer zakah, even if fatwa is there? And this so-called fatwa not accepted by majority of the Muslim shuyukh and muftis of around the world. I mean, my uncle, Mufti Taqi Usmani, Justice Taqi Usmani, is related to me. He's world authority when it comes to issuing fatwa. Darul Uloom Deoband, for Deobandi Maslak. Darul Uloom Deoband is basically a ruling authority on that. And all these have given fatwa that zakah has to be managed by Muslims and so on. So we have to be very careful on this. Secondly, we have to give, you can say, importance of it to through our advocacy and our approach to whoever we have in terms of governments, in terms of basically authorities and like that. So, for example, last year we entered into one agreement with the Prime Minister of Malaysia, right? That was an opportunity for us to work with him. We agreed in partnership. It was a couple of £1 million partnership. And at that time, I emphasized to him on this approach of United Nations. And he agreed with me that, yes, you are right, and we will take care of it. I'm off to Indonesia, many organizations getting together there on emergency meeting, and that's what I'm going to pick up. So wherever we can pick up whatever, inshallah, that will be great. I commend Dr. Hani because I know that Dr. Hani and his team, his current team and his previous team also, some of the team members have joined, moved on. They've been working very, very, very hard for past couple of years on this issue. It has taken a lot of time, but it is right time that we address this challenge. And it's not this, you can say, research and all this workshop is not only about basically moving zakat from non-Muslim administered organizations to Muslims. It's about whole concept of zakat, whole concept, all the you can say side activities of zakah and so on. So I hope, inshallah, that in this seminar you will learn quite a lot. You will your basically concept of zakah will change through this seminar. One thing is important that we must pay attention to this seminar. Keep our mobile phones on side and pay as much attention, because whatever you listen to it will be really, really beneficial. Don't take this seminar lightly. Again, is to do with our one of the five pillars of Islam. Jazakumullah khair, fi amanillah. I'll be in flight after 1.5 hours from now, so most likely I won't be able to stay tuned, but I hope you have very best of the session. My congratulations to Dr. Hani. I think this session and this outcome is one of the achievement of his lifetime. MashaAllah, it's one of the ambitious project he has done. So congratulations to him and his team. Fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
جزاك الله. Thank you, Sheikh.
Fatima, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Sorry. Yes. Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Imam Qasim. MashaAllah, your words were from the heart to the heart directly. And please, I request, first of all, Safar Salama. MashaAllah, you reach your destination safely. And please, as a traveler, please make dua for us, inshallah, that Allah give us the guidance and the wisdom and the tawfiq. So we continue with this very important project, inshallah, for the sake of the Ummah ajma'in.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan. Barakallahu feek. We continue now, inshallah. So we will, yeah, sorry? Yeah. So inshallah, let's continue, inshallah. So we don't take much of your time, and we start the most important section of today's session, which is inshallah the dialogue that we will looking forward to it, inshallah. So I will quickly go and give you a project overview. So this is intended to be a 2-year zakat consultation, and we have finished the first phase of it. During this first phase, we conducted extensive consultations, research, and document reviews, engaging donors and leaders and practitioners from diverse institutions and countries from around the world. The report from phase 1 shares the perspectives of academics, Muslim-led zakat administrators or organizations, and individual donors on zakat's role and intended impact. It explores its relationship to social and economic justice, the obligations and the legitimacy of administrators, which is again Dr. Hani, and both Dr. Hani and Imam Qasim spoke about, and include ideas, suggestions, and vision for zakah. Zakah as an instrument that moves wealth from the rich to the poor. Zakah itself presents principles of balance and justice. The research sought to understand these justice principles and their connection to the aid sector. The aid sector that not always really recognize or give priority to these same values. To capture the breadth, discussions went beyond a narrow aid sector perspectives. So we tried to explore deeper on diverse views on zakat's meaning for humanitarian and development practice today. The research question was, what is zakat's meaning and role, including in relation to social and economic justice? How, therefore, should it be administered within the context of humanitarian and development and humanitarian and development aid? The methodology that we have followed in this project was as follow. But to start with, I wanted to say that, subhanAllah, even though as a Muslim who gives zakah, I initially thought it's going to be an easy, direct, one kind, like one answer to the questions. But we noticed and we discovered that the topic of zakah is actually broad, nuanced, and deeply personal, spanning spiritual, social, and political dimensions. The research required a careful, balanced, and context-sensitive handling, which was not an easy task. Findings presented in an evidence-based way, avoiding any controversial framing. Phase one intended to engage both theoretical and operational perspectives, opinions on what is being realized and what is considered to be Zakat's unrealized potential. Phase one included 31 in-depth structured interviews with academics and Zakat administrators across 15 countries. That consisted of 12 academic interviews, 9 interviews with global majority administrators, 5 with UK administrators, so organizations, and 5 hybrid. And by hybrid, we mean that they walked across both academics and administrators, stakeholder groups. A donor survey also was launched and received 114 responses from 30 countries, exploring many questions regarding giving practices, decision-making factors, and preferences for Zakat administration. Notably, less than half, so less than 50% of the respondents answered the optional question about their school of thought or madhab, highlighting diversity in perspective. Now I'll give the mic to my colleague Tina to continue with the main emerging themes and findings from phase one. Tina?
Thank you, Fatima. So on the discussion around the purpose and the benefit of Zakat, we found that although there were majority-held opinions, such as that Zakat is a holistic instrument for spiritual, community, and economic objectives, with the benefits described as being for the giver, rights holders, and society. We also found within the discussions that there was a spectrum of focus. So on the one hand, more uncommonly, there were some people more focused on givers and the benefits that giving Zakat has on the giver. On the other end of the spectrum, there was a greater focus on liberatory concepts, Zakat as a macroeconomic tool with liberatory potential. The majority of perspectives were focused on economic empowerment. We found that the majority held perspective was that Zakat's mandate is connected to justice objectives, and that on impact, short and long term, is considered necessary. However, it was frequently described that longer term impact is infrequently addressed within the aid sector. Could I have the next slide? On rights and obligations of rights holders and administrators, we found that the discussion on rights holders was very much connected to the discussion on justice. So with the majority of participants describing Zakat as rights holders as having a right over the wealth, having a right to the wealth and to access. Givers were described with regards to their obligations rather than rights, but also when rights were discussed in terms of givers, that there was an emphasis on understanding and knowing how Zakat is administered and having trust in the administrator. There was a lot of discussion on administrators and the expectations of administrators. Trust was absolutely the key ingredient, and there was quite a lot of nuanced discussion around what trust means, how trust is garnered, by whom, who gives trust, and transparency was key to this question on trust. Also expected was professional competence, as well as being knowledgeable socially, spiritually, and technically. They were also actually just still on the administrators. Within these discussions on administrator, there were some underlying issues that were raised in terms of what kind of needs to be resolved to fully understand the obligations of the administrator. So this was in terms of the jurisprudence around the administrator, as well as understanding the mandate of Zakat and how it relates to an NGO aid sector mandate, and where there is tension and possible clashes, and how these tensions are resolved and handled. Also within this discussion is the local international dynamics and nuances. And there were some discussions that touched on the relationship to localization objectives within the sector, and its relation to the tie to the local that is within Zakat's framework. Yes, can I have the next slide? Thank you. I'll try and speed up a little bit, sorry. So on policies and scholars, so policies were mostly considered a best practice, mostly because they were seen to uphold trust. It was a demonstration of trust, of doing things properly, of being compliant, of regulation. At the same time, sometimes there were comments that policies were not necessarily being followed through, that sometimes oversight was lacking over policies. And some comments on policies as box ticking operations or a kind of marketing tool. So there was some comments around sincerity of policies. There were also quite a few maybe contentious, slightly difficult to read, probably, discussions on the role and engagement of scholars, and how sometimes these policies are signed off, and the issuing of fatwas. So yes, there was a lot of insights on the need to, for example, when scholars are being compensated for their role in signing off on policies, that compensation is transparent. So understanding better the role of issuing kind of eligibility for Zakat compliance. Can I get the next slide? So on the topic of secular administration, this was the theme that we began with, that we started the whole kind of project as the main focus. We found actually maybe slightly surprising findings, that it wasn't a consistent perspective by those that we interviewed, that secular actors should not be administering Zakat. So we found that the no group was almost the same size as those who said it depended. And there were various reasons. There were various reasons for this. Some people who said yes, it would be okay, really sort of centered the rights holder in their description of what reason. They said it very much it depended on who was best placed to deliver for the rights holder. In terms of organizational capacity to deliver at scale. Sometimes people felt that is the UN or larger INGOs. Of those that said no, those reasons could kind of be grouped in two categories. One being kind of ideological concerns and the view that secular administration contradicts ethical frameworks of Islam, and the other being the structural and systemic concerns about the sector and the beliefs that secular administration upholds inequitable power dynamics, with some comments talking about it's just an extension of the imbalance of power that already exists within the sector. And then the maybe was around kind of context and depending on who was best placed. Some people divided the role into different parts. Some people said it was absolutely essential, for example, that Muslims had the oversight in order to kind of create strategic more structured administration, but that delivery didn't necessarily need to be. But on the other hand, we heard the opposite as well, saying actually it's okay if you have kind of a fund administrator that's secular, but that the person giving was Muslim in order to have that to maintain the faith-based sort of interface and relating to concepts of obviously community building and those elements, those parts of Zakat's mandate. Okay, and then on the survey response, we found that 81% considered it important or very essential that their zakat is distributed by Muslims. So I thought that was quite interesting. And also, obviously, given the growing, as it was mentioned in the introduction, the growing interest in zakat, that, even during this period of the consultation, we were finding that there were more zakat funds popping up. There was IOM's fund popped up, and IRC have just also launched a zakat fund. But also to note that we've also noticed that a couple of Muslim organisations are also giving zakat funds to UN agencies. So I think, given the conversations on trust and relationship, this is quite a key finding in terms of the expectations of givers, that who their zakat is going to. And then on the final slide. So in conclusion, we frame the conclusions not as kind of final conclusions, but rather indications of what are people talking about, and in terms of a direction. And there was very much an emphasis of a desire to reclaim Zakat's transformative and justice-oriented mandate, emphasizing that zakat is too often treated transactionally by both Muslim-led organizations and secular organizations, and the desire for a more transformative institution for balance and justice. There was also a call for collective vision and leadership, and systemization. So coming together, looking at zakat as a system and an institution rather than fragmented. Also to reframe zakat as both for immediate relief and long-term empowerment. That was very key to the findings and what people expressed. The expectation was that it should not only be for immediate relief, but that immediate relief should sit within a longer term impact and a longer term strategy. And it wasn't seen as contrary. It was seen as it was together. And it was also noted that impact measurement is not really happening in the sector by either Muslim-led organisations or secular organisations. So it's more about delivery rather than looking at the impact on those key areas. Let me just zip.
Thank you. Yes.
Shall I finish, Fatima?
Yeah, okay, quickly, I'll give you half a minute.
There's a lot in the report, which will hopefully be out very soon. So this is just some of the key things that we have found. But yes, there's a lot, and be very interested to hear people's feedback on it when it comes out. So thanks.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you very much. And as she said, yes, it has been. Even though the question initially looked easy and we thought it's going to be straightforward, but the findings were very interesting. And yes, we would like you to read the report, which will be available soon, both in English and in Arabic. Thank you, Tina. Okay, now I'm pleased to hand over to Mahbub, who will facilitate our main dialogue session and guide us through an interactive, inshallah, interesting and very, very knowledgeable, full of ilm discussion with our key speakers. Mahbub is marketing and strategy professional with over 15 years of experience in building brand, communication, and growth systems across sectors, organizational stages, and missions. His work focuses on aligning strategies, strategic vision with sustainable impact and audience engagement. Mahboub, the floor is yours. It's Mahboub. Mahboub. Yeah,
He's
let me,
speaking, but we can't hear him for some reason.
yeah, we can't hear you.
You're not talking to me.
To Mahboub. From Mahboub Hussein. Okay, he said 1 second, guys. Okay.
Sister Fatima, I have a question, please, until Mahboub comes. Assalamu alaikum,
Yes.
everyone.
Wa alaikum salam.
You know,
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Right.
So, Sheikh Imam Qasim raised very important point, and in the presentation, it was raised again 2-3 times, which is about the secular system, about non-Muslims collecting money. So I just want to make a point here that we need to focus more on our area of influence and not area of concern, unless we have solution for this, because I think we have been discussing this, talking about it. Dr. Hani, remember, in many places, many conferences, and even today I was given to talk about the same topic, which I will not talk about it because already Imam Qasim covered it, and it's already covered in the report. So just, I think, food for thought maybe during the discussion, that what can we do? I don't think we have any tools to tackle this. However, just maybe our focus to be on the things that in the area of our influence than our concerns. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you, Brother Uthman there. I can feel the ideas coming through and through. I was about to say, it's great when technology works, and we actually have a technology segment later. So we'll start again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Thank you for everyone and your contributions so far, especially to Imam Qasim for setting the spirit and the intent by this entire session. So as Sister Fatima has introduced, my name is Mahboub Hussein, and I'll be facilitating this main segment here. For those of you that have joined, the session is called Zakat as Balance and Justice. We're going to be having conversations on meaning, systems, and practice as part of the World Humanitarian Action Forum's studies there. So very quickly, today's session brings together, and I'm really honored as well, a good panel of scholars, practitioners, experts in the area, some of whom I've had the privilege of working directly and indirectly with, individuals who have shaped how Zakat is understood and implemented across various contexts, from research and law to humanitarian practice, governance, and community trust as well. So our goal today, as Brother Uthman was alluding to as well, and we'll get to that as well, is our goal today is very, very simple but profound. We want to explore in this short time that Allah has given us there, how Zakat can serve not just as a mere transactional transfer of wealth, but as a system of justice, one that restores the mizan, the balance in society, and that aligns with our morals, social and economic order that we also want to see. The discussion will be grounded in their ongoing Zakat consultations, many of you who have contributed to that process. And today we're going to reflect by way of discussion collectively on the insights that have emerged. We'll begin with a few framing remarks, followed by an open dialogue. And just to remind you as well, we're all here for a reason on this virtual stage. So please feel free to interact, respond to one another. There's a chat facility there.
You're gonna have to catch the goose.
Yeah.
What is it, duck? Geese, the geese.
Okay.
Oh, this is broken.
If someone wants to go on mute, that'd be fantastic. So yeah, so we want to build on each other's thoughts. Our aim is conversation in addition to presentation. Now, we have a few guests as well. Time is already working against us. Let me introduce everyone here in no particular order here. We have Dr. Mehmet Asutai, who's the professor of Middle Eastern and Islamic political economy and finance at Durham University Business School in the United Kingdom up north. He is the director of the Durham Center for Islamic Economics and Finance and program director for the MSc in Islamic Finance. His research and teaching focus on Islamic moral economy, Islamic banking and finance, and the political economy, especially in the Middle East. He also serves as a managing editor of the Review of Islamic Economics and associate editor of the American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences. Thank you for joining us. We have 9 speakers, by the way. Next is Dr. Namungo Hamza, lecturer at the Kampala International University and founder of Attain Edge Research Insights. He previously served as head of research, planning and finance at the House of Zakat and Waqf, Uganda. His research interests include Islamic social finance, zakat and waqf management, fintech, and sustainable development, especially in East Africa. Thank you for coming, Dr. Namungo. Next, we have Adil Badr, a zakat consultant and zakat operations lead at Islamic Relief Worldwide. He supports global zakat strategy, compliance, implementation across all the Islamic relief offices worldwide, and a specific focus on ensuring transparency, efficiency, and impact in the zakat distribution. We have also Lamiz Hafiz from Muslim Aid. Thank you so much for coming. A global humanitarian leader and currently director of strategy and communications at Muslim Aid. Lamiz has over 17 years of experience in humanitarian relief, operations, advocacy, management, all in her aim to strengthening the role of Muslim NGOs in international development and humanitarian action. Next we had Brother Othman, who came in as well just earlier, who is the chief executive for Action for Humanity, which was previously called Syria Relief, a British Palestinian humanitarian leader with over 25 years of experience. I think I'm pretty sure it's more. He's previously served as a CEO of Human Appeal and held trustee roles at Avico and Charity Futures. He is widely recognized for his leadership worldwide in humanitarian advocacy and global development. Next on the roster, we have Dr. Sohail Hanif. This feels a bit strange. We actually work together as well. He's a beloved colleague, friend, and of mine here, who is the chief executive of the National Zakat Foundation UK and an associate lecturer at the Cambridge Muslim College. He holds a doctorate from the University of Oxford, specializing in Hanafi legal theory, and has taught Islamic law, Arabic, Quranic studies in Jordan and the UK. His work is very interesting. It bridges Islamic scholarship and contemporary social finance and zakat in a practitioner sense. We're almost there, so 2 more speakers. Dr. Ibrahim Taliua, consultant and trainer in family relations, parental education and personal development. He is currently the president of the As-Salam Foundation for Social Development in Morocco, which promotes social welfare, family cohesion, and community empowerment through faith-based and developmental programs. And last but certainly not least, we have from Aman FI, the 2 co-founders, Adil Ali and Ali Sajjad. Adil and Ali are co-founders of Aman FI, which is a faith-based technology company redefining how people give and how organizations manage their generosity and charity giving. They combine their expertise in technology, innovation, community engagement, and they are currently building amazing products which are aimed at building transparency, user-centered fundraising solutions that simplify zakat and make it easier for people, zakat and wider charitable giving. Their work bridges across technology and trust, which empowers charities and organizations to operate with a greater accountability and empowering donors to see the tangible impact of their giving. Okay, so as you can see, we have a lot of people here. We're really blessed. So we'll go, without further ado, we'll go straight into the questions, of which there are 10. So on to the first question, which I'd like to point to Dr. Mehmet Asutai. First up is yourself. The 3 objectives that came up in the research are faith building, community building, and economic empowerment. Yet often this focus ends up mostly on the economic side. Two questions which can be merged as one. For Dr. Mehmet.
I'm not touching any birds on because
yeah. I think we have another conversation going. So if you could, if one of the administrators or someone could mute, that would be really, really good. Thank you so much. So the question we have of Dr. Mehmet, if you're here, is how can Islamic moral and political economy help us reach back balance to see zakat is returning to the right of society to society, and what values or principles do you think we need to recenter? Over to yourself.
Okay, assalamu alaikum to everyone, and it's good to be here, and it's good to see all the colleagues from different institutions, but in particular Dr. Hani, as I know him from my student years from the Islamic Society activism, but also I have been engaging with Sister Fatima and Tina. Now my take up on zakat, but what is called Islamic social finance, is a political economic perspective in terms of resource accessibility. And that resource accessibility is particularly important for us to understand within the larger context rather than the charitable giving. It's a structural issue, how we structure the society in terms of resource accessibility. Unfortunately, this term that has come out in recent years called Islamic social finance is terribly undermining the whole concept of zakat and also waqf, although our focus is zakat, because it financializes, it takes out from the religious context, the political economic context, and it limits within the neoliberal condition of moving capital part. And that is totally unjust. And it is pity that that term Islamic social finance has become now a common terminology that we use. And I totally oppose that, because this is a resource accessibility issue. And it is a political economy issue, how we organize the society around resources. The whole premises, therefore, of Islamic moral and political economy lies into how a social formation of a society is organized. In other words, how people's accessibility to resources, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for everyone to have access. And within that access process, from the initial position of entirely liberated position, over the centuries, of course, with the emergence of territoriality and emergence of establishing territories, whether it's a empire state, individual territorialities, what we have resulted in is people claiming rights on resources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for everyone to have access. And where we are now today, the resources are entirely dominated by corporations, and therefore resource accessibility have become terribly difficult. And the role associated to Muslims, and in particular zakat and Islamic social welfare institutions, to moderate the consequences of neoliberal condition. So we are not allowed to ask the question why we have this structural problem of inequality in resource accessibility, but on the contrary, we are asked to use our resources. In now, of course, the international agencies are tapping into as well, to moderate the consequences of the existing structure without questioning the structure. However, the Islamic position here and Islamic moral economy position here is very much how we can create the necessary structures within the Islamic understanding, that social formation, that Allah, individual self, space and time, social relations, and the resource accessibility. So that is an important structure within Islamic institutional logic to organize that resource accessibility. Allah, creator of all those resources, I, as an individual, has certain accessibilities, but within the time and the space, I am not allowed to establish this territorial hegemonic position, and therefore with the social relations that I exist in a society, how I can ensure resource accessibility can be possible. What I term this one as ihsani governance. In other words, beyond the fiqhi position, even beyond the legalistic position, the moral condition is that how I can ensure with the resource accessibilities that I have, how other people that I can allow them to have access to those resources. And that's very much the Islamic moral condition. And Islamic moral economic, political economic condition, therefore, to overcome how in the short run we can overcome the barriers, how we can overcome the barriers, and in the long run, how we can break those barriers so that the structural change can happen in the society, so that the empowerment position can take place. And that is particularly important when we look at the Quranic verse directly refers to the prohibition of riba and the zakat together. And this directly relates to this injunction directly relates to capital. One, riba prohibition suggests that the power of capital has to be relegated so that this hegemonic power of capital has to be eliminated so that the balance can be maintained in the society. And on the other hand, the zakat condition immediately emerge again because the accessibility of resources are overcome because of the territoriality, because of the privatization of resources. Again, how capital, the position of capital is relegated through giving the compensation to the society because resources belongs to society, and hence establishing that balance. The power of capital through riba relegated, and then compensation because of the privatization, again, the position of capital. And therefore, this is a society of mizan, the way, what we call one of the meaning of ihsan is the equilibrium. The way Allah created the society with these equal excesses, how we can ensure that we are approaching towards that, and hence the ihsani position. And therefore, the whole conceptualization of Islamic institutional logic here, directly referring to us looking at the Islamic institutional logic and locating zakat within that understanding of balance. Therefore, the justice, the adala, why? Because the tawhidi condition, Islamic moral economy's position directly starts, as I mentioned, Allah, that's a tawhid, and tawhid directly suggests the complementarity is, and therefore unity. Complementarity is that everything and everyone complements each other, and therefore the mizan condition, and therefore we have to seek justice to ensure that all stakeholders have access to resources, and through which then we can sustain the equilibrium, the ihsani condition, and have individual responsibility to the Khalifa, and end in the end the falah condition. And therefore, just relegating zakat, just a charitable instrument rather than a political economic instrument to restructure society, is unfortunately taking this amazing instrument out of its context and relegating only a relief-oriented instrument. The condition of zakat directly establishing peace in the society, accessibility to resources, ensuring that the equilibrium can be sustained. In other words, yes, we have to give zakat not because it's a charity, but directly because it is the expropriation of land, water, resources, and etc. And therefore, society has to be compensated, those people who are excluded from that. Similarly, the prohibition of riba directly relates to using capital power to punish others and expropriating again.
Thank you, Dr.
Expropriation is at the heart of this. And therefore, just to finish with, therefore, rather than allowing zakat, this amazing instrument to be utilized just out of the context directly, rather than directly empowering individuals, but just a charitable instrument. But also, unfortunately, in recent years, have, as Dr. Hani Albana mentioned, how governments have become clever to collect the zakat to overcome their budget deficits. These are unfortunately undermining the power of civil society. Zakat has to be on the civil society to negotiate against the power of the states, so that their political economic structural response can be developed for the rest of the society, so that the empowerment can take place and emancipation from need can be essentialized. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much there. I mean, if we just left it at that and absorbed what you've just said, then that would be enough for a month.
Yeah.
But we must continue. I particularly liked your point, Dr. Mehmet, about ihsanic excellence, especially the combination of Arabic and English terms. It's one that really encapsulates what you've mentioned. And of course, do have a read of the comments echoing what you've said. Perhaps our next speakers and experts can take us deeper, especially around this theme where we'll build onto it there. So the next theme is that many interviewees, right, struggled to describe what faith and community building might actually look like in the actual zakat work. So my question to Dr. Ibrahim Taliwa and Adel Badr is, how can international and national zakat administrators actively nurture faith and community, not just deliver funds from A to B? And on what might that look like in real programs or partnerships? So either Brother Adil or Dr. Ibrahim can start off.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Can you hear me? Is my voice coming through?
We can do, yes.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, Brother Mahbub, for the question and for giving me the opportunity to speak. International organizations have the opportunity to transfer funds from one place to another place, from the global north to the global south. That's something that, within the charity sector, within the NGO sector, within humanitarian and development work is standard practice. That's the bread and butter. But alongside the transfer of those funds, there's a soft component that takes place when any aid initiative or any delivery of assistance is actioned. The role that I believe international organizations have when it comes to zakat management and when it comes to building the resilience and that sense of community is it's contained within the soft component and the values and the ethos and the ethics of the organization that's carrying out and delivering that aid. So it might be the case that you have a secular organization and a faith-based organization that both have equal capacity when it comes to banking and infrastructure and pricing and logistics. They can be equal in that regard, but when it comes to the values, the ethics, and the soft component and the reflection of the values of both the donor who's giving his or her zakat and the zakat recipient whose right it is to receive the zakat, that element is missing when you have non-faith actors encroaching in this space, or when you have non-faith actors involved in the direct delivery of the zakat. I don't know.
Thank you so much there. That's very insightful there. But Badr, do you want to add on to the initial comments given?
Sorry, is that question directed to me?
My apologies. Can you hear me? Dr.
Yes.
Ibrahim, my apologies. Dr. Ibrahim, are you here?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, rahmatullah.
The presentation, inshallah, will be in Arabic.
Yes, inshallah, Dr. Ibrahim, and the translation is available, so we can all move to the English channel now if you, inshallah,
Thank you.
if you can, بإذن الله. And Dr. Ibrahim, تفضل.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أولا الشكر موصول لكل الإخوة والأخوات المسؤولين على هذه الندوة الدولية حول الزكاة. هذه الزكاة أيها الأفاضل ليست مالا فقط يدفع، بل هي فرض إلهي كما قال الله تعالى: فريضة من الله، يهدف إلى تحقيق نوع من العدالة الاجتماعية وتعزيز التكافل بين أفراد المجتمع، مع وضع، وهو يعني الأمر الذي تتحدثون فيه اليوم، وضع ميزان اجتماعي وعلائقي بين العطاء والأخذ لتعزيز جودة الحياة بين مختلف شرائح المجتمع، غنيهم وفقيرهم. كما تعتبر أيضا الزكاة مدخل أساسي لتوزيع الثروة وتداول المال وإحساس بأهمية وقيمته في الدنيا والآخرة. كما يعتبر مال الزكاة من أهم موارد المنظمات الخيرية والإنسانية، والتي يلقى عليها ثقل كبير في تنظيم وتحسين برامج وآليات توزيعها على مستحقيها وفق رؤية مندمجة تجمع بين تحقيق الواجب الديني للمزكي وترسيخ البعد الإيماني والتضامني المجتمعي، مع التركيز على تقييم الأثر الامباكت الحقيقي لمثل هذه البرامج، خاصة إذا استحضرنا أن كثير من البلدان لم تنظم بشكل رسمي وإداري هذا الركن الثالث من أركان الإسلام. والتحقيق نوع من التوازن في برامج توزيع الزكاة، ندعو إلى الانتباه والتركيز إلى الأبعاد التالية بشكل مختصر. أولا، البعد التعبدي باستحضار أن الزكاة ركن من أركان الإسلام وواجب لا يسقط عند توفر شروطه. قال الله تعالى: إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وأقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة. ثانيا، البعد الإيماني، فالإيمان ليس فقط أقوال وأحوال، بل هو أيضا أفعال ومساهمة حقيقية ومباشرة في النسيج الاجتماعي. قال الله تعالى: خذ من أموالهم صدقة تطهرهم وتزكيهم بها وصل عليهم إن صلاتك سكن لهم. البعد النفسي أو البعد الثالث هو البعد النفسي والوجداني، وهو بعد مهم، إذ الزكاة وإعطاؤها بسخاء ومحبة وإنسانية نوع من التفاني أو التعافي النفسي لإحساس المعطي بقيمته الذاتية وبردود الفعل الإيجابية للمستفيدين. الزكاة تطهير للنفوس من الغيرة والحسد والكراهية تجاه أصحاب الدخول والثروات. البعد الرابع هو البعد القانوني، وهو مهم أيضا وزجري، إذ الزكاة بصفتها واجب وليس تطوع، وجب أن تكون لها مؤسسات ذات مصداقية وشفافية وخبرة ومهنية تتمتع بالصفة العمومية والإلزامية لتنظيم جباية الزكاة وتوزيعها توزيعا عادلا وفق رؤية مندمجة متوازنة لتحقيق العفاف والكفاف والنهضة الاقتصادية والكرامة الإنسانية، وذلك بتبني مشاريع اقتصادية كتمليك مصانع ومشاريع أو مشاريع اقتصادية مديرة للدخل للمستفيدين وفق شروط وآليات واضحة تنافسية، مع دمج الرعاية الاجتماعية والكفالة للمحتاجين والمعوقين والقاصرين والأيتام والمقعدين والشيوخ والأطفال الرضع، وخاصة من لا عائلة لهم والأرامل وغيرهم. البعد الخامس هو البعد الاقتصادي، بتوفير الحد الأدنى للكفاية المجانية من المعيشة للأفراد المستحقين وتحقيق التفاوت والتباين وتخفيف التفاوت والتباين في توزيع الدخل والثروة بين أفراد المجتمع، مع تبني برامج للخدمة للحد من البطالة والتضخم والتقلبات الاقتصادية. البعد السادس والأخير هو البعد التنموي العام، فالزكاة تدفع رؤوس
Thank you so much.
No, there's the last one.
All right.
There's the last one.
Thank you so much, Dr.
No.
Ibrahim.
Ask him to finish. Ask him to finish the last one.
Sure. Thank you.
يعني أكمل دكتور إبراهيم اللقطة الأخيرة إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله. أكمل.
آخر نقطة.
نعم تفضل دكتور إبراهيم، آخر نقطة إن شاء الله.
آخر نقطة، أدعو المنظمة الدولية وأيضا المؤسسات الرسمية إلى، وسمعت كثير من المقترحات الجميلة والإيجابية في هذه الندوة، وأتمنى لهذه الندوة إن شاء الله الرحمن الرحيم أن يكون لها استمرار، وأن ترى هذه البرامج وهذه المقترحات النور بإذن الله. شكرا لكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
شكرا.
تفضل محبوب.
Thank you so much there. So this is really good. Thank you, both of you, Brother Adil and Dr. Ibrahim, for giving your insights there. Fascinating insights there. And look, I'm also looking at the comments. If there are thoughts that come in, something that's resonated or something you agree with or even disagree with, put it in the chat. This will all contribute to this body of knowledge that we're all contributing to by way of discussion. I will just, before we move on to our next distinguished expert, is just try to keep the essence. I know it's hard of academics. Try to keep it as short as possible. I hate to be that guy there, so that we get the essence of what you're trying to say, and we give fairness to everyone there as well. I understand context is key to a lot of this work. So Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you so much, everyone. Our next guest is Dr. Suhail Hanif on the legitimacy and the role of the administrator, category 3. Dr. Suhail, in your interview, you mentioned that the theory of the administrator needs to be resolved, right? Very simply, what do you mean by this? And what does a legitimate zakat administrator look like in today's context? Over to yourself.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum to everybody. And just again, my great appreciation, Dr. Hani, for his vision, and Fatima and Athena for leading us on the project. And my honor to be on this panel with everybody. I'll try and be very brief. I cannot remember all of what I said or the context of it, but just in brief, there's an age-old, like an ancient distinction between what's known as the official zakat worker, the Quran calls amil, and there's a few other words that the fiqh books use, and somebody who's called merely an agent or a representative of the giver. The distinction in classical fiqh is that the agent is just an extension of the hand of the giver. So when you ask your friend, here's my zakat, please go and give it to some box, that's the agent. The distinction between the official worker and the agent in classical fiqh is when I give my zakat to the agent, his hand is just an extension of my own hand. So if he loses it on the way, my zakat hasn't been discharged. When I give my zakat to what you'd call the official zakat collector, his hand represents the Muslim public. So when I put the zakat into his hand, the zakat is discharged. Because it's not my hand, it's moved out of my hand to a public representative hand. So when we talk about this question of non-Muslim agencies, we have to ask ourselves, are we also agents? Are we acting as an extension of the hands of givers? If that's the case, then we are no different if somebody asks person A to put their zakat in the box, or they ask person B. And if person A is a Muslim or non-Muslim, that's a secondary consideration, because the giver prefers person A for whatever reason. And so the question, before we talk about, I guess, non-Muslim agencies and their ability, we have to almost look at ourselves and ask ourselves, are we extensions of the hand of givers, or are we something much more official, much more public, much more representative, and what does that take? And before we hasten to answer that, I think we'd all agree that something so large and long-running like Islamic Relief Muslim Aid is not like a pop-up shop that starts from one afternoon with two guys in a neighborhood conversation. And so we all would agree that it's not just being a Muslim that makes you official, it's something else. And so I'm not going to say more than this, but just we have to understand what is that something else that becomes wide-reaching, which becomes a public hand, which wins a wide mandate, and therefore ties into things that Imam Qasim and Dr. Muhammad were saying earlier. It's a sort of vision of what this body is. Otherwise, if we are just utilizing zakat as an income channel to do work, then we are no different than any other actor. So it's almost like the non-Muslim actors are mimicking how we're acting, which is we've made the bar low. And so almost we have to look inwards and see, well, what is the zakat requirement in our work? How do we define boundaries? And essentially is, how do we come together for a much more profound mandate? I'll just stop my comment there.
Thank you so much there, Dr. Sahel. Does anyone want to add on to this there? Because I can say for one thing on behalf of donors, they ask this question a lot. What made you? Who gave you the right? What makes you qualified? And if we're seeing people opening up charities right, left, and center, then there has to be something that distinguishes us between us and other actors that are coming in. I'm curious to hear what others think. I think Dr. Hani has his hand up.
I think what to answer this question raised by Dr. I forgot.
Dr. Mahmoud, Dr. Taliwa,
Dr.
Suhail. Okay.
It is the length of the length of the existence of the organization, which gave it the credibility. If you have organizations have been trusted and entrusted by the community for 30, 40, 50 years, this gave them the legitimacy to do that. Because this organization was some of them mentioned by Dr. Suhail, during their period of working have raised billions and billions of pounds and spend it without having any backlash. Them and the others as well. So the more you are with the community, the more you are entrusted by the community, the more you deliver for the community, and the more the community that trust you, which this give you the legitimacy of what Brother Suhail was talking about.
Can you allow me, Dr. Hani, just to comment?
Yes, sir. I'm not the chairman.
Mahbub.
Yes, you may. Yes, you may, Dr. Osman.
Yes.
It feels good saying that, actually. Usually it's
very
the other
difficult.
Bismillah,
very difficult to talk when Suhail is in the discussion. But I just want to add one point about the morality and the ethics, Dr. Hani.
Yes.
Dr. Hani, I believe personally, and I'm one of you, by the way, I'm practitioner, I deal with Zakat the last 30 years, whatever. But I think we have an ethical problem, even as a Muslim charities, to deal with Zakat properly. And this is where the question of Brother Suhail, that if we lose the ethics principles and the morality we have, then there's no difference between Uthman and John. It is the same. They can do. And therefore, what I personally say that we need to think about this, the ethical question and the ethical, and you can see now in our sector, and because I think we are here in mature enough to have a safe space to tackle a few things, that we have a leadership ethical problem, and our practice in many cases, and Zakat is just one of them. So we need to go back, what you mentioned, Dr. Hani, about how the faith can influence our practice and our behavior to do it right. Wallahu a'lam.
Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Brother Uthman. Very conclusive and succinct with your words. I think Adil has his hand up, but I will be going to Adil. You're actually in the next question, but if there's anyone else that wants to speak, or if not, then we'll give it to Brother Adil to give his thoughts as well.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jazakallah khair. I think we need to be honest with ourselves, and the international NGO sector, particularly the Muslim charity sector, has been caught on the back foot. And the reason why we've been caught on the back foot is that we've been collecting zakat for decades, coming up to half a century, I would suggest, within the UK certainly, and then maybe less in the US and Europe and other parts of the global north. But it's only recently that we've started to take a real hard look at as in regards to how that zakat is being managed. We were happy to collect the zakat, but we need to have systems in place, processes in place, and policies in place. I disagree with one of the findings or one of the comments that was made earlier on in regards to zakat policy just being best practice. I would consider zakat policy, framework, guidance, processes. These are all essentials because we're not dealing with, some loose change that's being handed over from one brother in Pakistan to another brother in India, or from one small village to another small village. We're talking about the transfer of millions of pounds, millions of euros, millions of USD, and we need to have a correct policy, procedure, framework in place in regards to how that's being managed. But at the same time, as Sheikh Suhail very rightly mentioned, if we've not been using zakat in the correct manner and employing the soft power, and another organization, Joe Public or whatever the name of the organization is, they come along and they're following the same cash modality transfer or transfer of in-kind items to the zakat recipient or the beneficiary or the rights holder, whatever terminology you'd like to use, then you can't blame them for following and understanding zakat just to be a transfer of one form of monetary assistance from one location to another. If we weren't taking and having developed a mechanism and a system in place at that time, and someone else comes in and does the same thing that we were doing previously, we've set the bar at the standard for how zakat should be managed, and they're coming in and saying, well, that's quite easy, let's go ahead and do this. It's for us to take the lead. Zakat is our ibadah, it's our project, it's our proposal, it's our delivery, and we are the ones who are setting the standard. At the same time, without being particularly negative, I think in the past how the situation was, the Muslim communities within the West were at a certain level, they had a certain social standing within the countries that they were, and there was a certain mechanism for how zakat was managed by them based on their economic background and where they'd come from. We've moved on from that, and I think the 50 years or 60 years that our communities have been within the countries that we're residing has given us time to mature and develop those systems. National Zakat Foundation, when I was growing up, there was no such thing as National Zakat Foundation, but now the name is well known, and the system that they have, having that idea of a foundation for the UK for zakat to be redistributed was something that was, when I was 15, 16, we would never have thought. We would have said, there's no need for a NZF within the UK. But things have moved on and we've developed. I think we're at the stage now, under the guidance of Dr. Hani, mashallah, and his team and other eminent panelists that you have on today. What I would really, really strongly suggest is, and I've been in many conversations, and alhamdulillah, many people are passionate, but we need a central secretariat or a body or a group of people who can kind of direct the conversation, which is what I believe Dr. Hani and his team can facilitate for us. There's so much more that I want to say, but I'm going to give somebody else a chance. I hope I've kind of made...
No, this is really good. I'm actually having another thought, by the way, and I want to inspire. This really needed to be in a retreat for 2 days where we concentrate on this. It just shows that this 90 minutes or whatever we have is just simply not enough. So maybe if we, in our collective context, if we have funders, people who can back this work, right? Who can convene at a higher level with even better implementation, then that would be good as well. And we'll follow up on this. This is one of our aims. I want to bring in Dr. Mehmet again, and to bring in an academic insight, very short, into what is a very practical discussion there, if you don't mind, Dr. Mehmet. And we'll go on to the next question after that.
On the practical side, of course, the political economic question remains a structural issue. And unfortunately, the global political hegemony would not allow us to restructure our societies to ensure resource accessibility can be possible and inequalities and the wars over resources can be overcome. And therefore, in the short term, what the charities are doing is very much the condition that we have, and we have to continue with that. But my fear is that how with our zakat collection and the distribution of zakat, whether we are making ourselves an instrument of the market system, the global hegemony, or are we really creating the conditions to overcome this zakat giving condition? In other words, are we preventing people to going into the same traps, or are we just going with the global hegemony? They knocked on Palestine, then we create charitable funds and overcome the problem. But how our charity is taking a stakeholding position on the global political issues as a zakat condition is important as well. Yes, we have to collect zakat, we have to give to people who are in need, but at the same time, we have to be part of the larger global debate that the human rights abuses, the genocides that are taking place, the resource accessibilities, the domination of corporations in the Muslim world as well, how these are creating the environment. We are not discussing that because zakat condition requires removing those adverse impacts as well. So why we are not discussing, for instance, in the Muslim world, the hegemony of market system and the domination of corporations as a zakat condition? We cannot relegate zakat only an instrument, financial transaction, but we have to consider the larger socioeconomic and the political economic conditions. And within that, then the empowerment. Yes, charities are doing amazing work. I am not denying that, but also the charities have to create this political force to ask those structural questions as an important stakeholder. I mean, look at the large amounts of monies that we are collecting. This is a huge stakeholding. So we have to be able to say that, look, that's enough. So let's look at how we can restructure the conditions. And unfortunately, therefore, as I mentioned, zakat is an amazing institutions that we have in the civil society to negotiate with the nation states, they negotiate with the global system, but unfortunately we are not using that. We are just accepting the role has been designed for us to moderate the consequences of the global system creates in terms of wars, genocides, and the poverty. And therefore, in addition to what is happening in the field, amazing, but we have to bring this broader context and in which, because that's the zakat condition as well. Zakat is not only condition of giving to the poor, it is the right of the society has to be returned. And that of course requires empowering people, creating a structure, particular structure, and ensuring that the social contract that we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivered on the ground, not only the social contract that we have with the governments that we have today. So that's an important issue that I want to bring to the table as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much there. All of this points one way. We need to almost like inculcate within ourselves a deeper sense of political maturity amongst ourselves to then take on the work that Dr. Mehmet has kindly highlighted there. Moving on, thank you so much. I can see the comments as well. Do take some time to look at the comments as well. If anything, they're just as informative as what the speakers are bringing themselves. Right, we move on to trust, right? As a cornerstone. Trust comes through or came through as the defining quality of a zakat administrator organization. But most of the time, we talk about trust with givers, but not with recipients. So I'll repeat that again. There's trust with givers, but not necessarily with recipients. My prompt to Dr. Namungo, Adil again, and open to others as well. There's a few questions, all tied into one theme. How do we build trust between administrators, scholars, and rights holders, recipients? Is that trust as important as the trust given to donors or by donors? And that's specifically to Dr. Namungo, and I'll give the other question to Adil and to others. So these first two questions: how do we build trust between administrators, scholars, and beneficiaries? And is that trust as important as the trust given by donors? So Dr. Namungo, if you'd unmute yourself and give your insights on this.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, yes.
Sure. Thank you so much, Waf and the organizers. I will thank my previous speakers. I've enjoyed so much. quite indeed. So looking at the question that has been posed to me, I'll look at trust in 4 components. Or let's look at 4 components that connect trust, that connects to trust in as far as Zakah management is concerned. Number 1, we have the administrators. Let me put switch on my video. Sorry, that. So, okay, so we have 4 components that make us trust in as far as Zakah is concerned. And the first one is administrators. The second one is scholars. And the third one are givers, the donors, those who are the muzaki, who give zakah. And then we have to look at the rights holders, the beneficiaries, the mustahik, those who are supposed to receive zakat. And if you look at the current zakat management practices, I will speak from the perspective of East African and mostly the developing countries, Africa, East Africa, some in West Africa. What we normally care about are the administrators. I mean, in the 8 categories, we look mostly on the administrators, right? And then the scholars. The givers, mashallah, if someone gives zakah, if the muzaki gives zakah, for his on his side, as far as the administrators are concerned, what they care more about is how they manage this particular zakah that has been given. But there is one aspect that we overlook as administrators. That aspect is that the giver, the muzaki of today, is much more informed, given the technology, given even other zakah collecting agencies. Like now we have the UN collecting zakah. We have other agencies. We've seen them. I've attended quite a number of World Zakah and Wakaf Forum, and I've seen many lobbying to be part and then to get that legitimacy to collect zakah. So why do I mention mostly the administrators? First of all, zakah has not been collected quite to its commensurable figures. If you look at the potential and what we collect globally. For that, administrators, we have to look at clear SOPs and standardized governance of zakah. I've been hearing about some commentators commenting that we need to have a centralized zakah system. Of course, that is quite very important. But as Professor Mehmet has mentioned, that we cannot have that, globally cannot have that same thinking, same system. Of course, even the powers that are there to dictate, the prefects of the whole world cannot allow that. But again, in our separate silos where we collect zakah, I've seen in the UK you have NZF and many institutions. In Africa we have quite many. If you look at Uganda, we can even have 200, but collecting less than what you can even expect. So having standardized governance protocols, secondly, public reporting and digital audits, mostly that, as I mentioned about the donors, the givers, they're more informed, they are digitally more aware, and they see what is happening with other conventional charities. And on our side as Muslims, the Ummah, the leaders of the Ummah, when we're managing our zakah, we think that we are managing something that is rightfully ours, something that we should not even be innovative about. And this is what other conventional potential zakah, those who want to collect zakah when they are not rightfully, I would say rightfully supposed to do. This is what they see. They see a lot of complacency. They see a lot of dispersed efforts, operating in silos. And mostly, if you look at some agencies like UN, if you ask some people, they will tell you that I would prefer paying my zakah to the UN than paying it to an imam somewhere in a mosque or to a Muslim zakah collecting agency. And then you will ask why, and they will tell you that, with UN, I can get my the digital receipts. I can monitor in real time where the zakah is going and who has received and all that. So even if what is seized is not Sharia compliant and all that, but the fact is that the donor of today is much more informed and has more liberty and more freedoms to give whatever it is, and the onus is on us. I would say us, the scholars, first of all, to be consistent in interpretation across all jurisdictions, of course, to have a strong Sharia governance, We have to sensitize our communities. And also, most importantly, as I wind up, we have to appear to be working together. We have a lot of dispersed efforts in as far as interpreting zakah, collecting zakah, even distributing it. We seem to be different. And the conventionals are looking at this and they're looking at an opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamza. That's really, really good here. And thank you for your insights there. I'm going to make a request. It's really important that these questions, we go through them all and we give everyone a chance to be seen, heard, and give their opinions and thoughts. May I ask if it's okay that we extend this session by 15 minutes? So we were meant to finish at 2 p.m. If we can finish 2:15, that would really help. Are we all in agreement? If I can have a thumbs up maybe, or a love heart. A love heart is better. That's it. Okay, good, good. I'm working with Americans and they do this a lot. So it's kind of seeped over into here. Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to finish 2:15. That said, we will continue. Brother Adil, I'm going to hold you there. We're being dynamic in the moment. Dr. Sohail, adding on to what Dr. Hamza's mentioned here, right? Like, there's the trust that we need to gain, acquire, and retain with beneficiaries, right? And then there's donors as well. How do you see this kind of, is it a binary? Is it both? To what extent is one outweighs the other? And in what context? Do you have any thoughts on that there in your experience of NZF?
Yeah, just brief thoughts. I used the phrase a Muslim public when I referred to the formal zakat work as opposed to the mere agent of an individual. And if we say that we're trying to build a mandate to be a larger form of institutional infrastructure, then it's not even, in my mind, just givers and recipients then. It is that faith community finding trust and representation. Representation is a word I'm using a bit more nowadays, because it comes out of the fact that zakat technically is tax in its most traditional understanding. And tax is given in exchange for some representation. And so the metrics, therefore, cannot merely be one of income, and the customer cannot merely be the giver. And this is the beginning of a shift in how we conceive of the larger project I think we all have to plug into. But I think that's what I'm seeing a lot in the chat. What are the definitions? What are the metrics? What are we trying to define? And I think that's the thought work. So I fully agree with the essential comment.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Just one comment, if possible.
Of course, go ahead.
Dr. Mahmoud, I think Dr. Sohail and other brothers mentioned about we need. I think, and someone mentioned we have National Zakat Foundation as an institution. I don't think we have an institution. This is a problem. We don't have, and what Dr. Mahmoud mentioned, I totally agree with him, but we need to have a body. We need to have an institution can help us. We cannot influence anything without the collective effort to have like a zakat central somehow, I don't know, system like Prince Hassan of Jordan. He wrote a couple of papers about it. Very, really important papers he wrote. This is one. Secondly, but if let me focus on UK. So we don't have an institution. We have National Zakat. And I always, when I joke with my dear brother Sohail, I said, if I have £1 million, I will go and establish an institution and take you there. Because National Zakat Foundation is another charity like us, brothers. Let's just face this. But you need that where all this work. It's not about 2 days retreat. What is next after that? What can we do together to have that institute? Then we can have the real influence long term. As Dr. Hani always says, we need those who are around the table to think about it and to invest, because we cannot, Dr. Hani cannot do it alone. Sohail, I know he has brilliant ideas. He cannot do it alone. It needs a collective effort to come to invest. And then after that, we can talk about how we influence the system. The other point, Mahbub, about the trust. And I can tell you that trust was a main factor for many Muslims to go towards the non-Muslims and the UN agencies to give them. partially. I can't say 100%, but it is part, because the unethical practices we have been doing in the last 10, 15 years. So now, especially high net worth donors and corporate, they go to the safe side.
Yep.
Wallahu a'lam.
Yeah, I've seen that with my own work as well. Definitely, Osman. You are actually next as well. And you definitely, look, this isn't more about one organization or another, even if it's national is added onto the name, or international or world, whatever the case, or local or whatever. This is far bigger than us, but then what it mandates, then the question, as you said, what is then required of us then to take it to the next stage? Brother Osman, back to the secular versus faith-based administration. The consultation revealed mixed views on whether secular actors can administer zakah, and it came up right at the beginning. Simple few questions for you. What do you see as the main risks and challenges of secular administration where it does exist? And can there ever be a healthy partnership between the secular and faith-based actors like ourselves?
Yes, I think here I have just a quick couple of points, because I already raised some of that. I think what we need from the secular administrative, we need the system. So if we can come up with a hybrid model that includes the faith-based governance with the secular system, aligned with the humanitarian development goals. So that's the structure we need. So structural charity should cover all this kind of criteria. So what we take from the principles, the values from the faith-based work, business, whatever, we need the system from the others. So I think from the secular system, if we combine those together, I think that is missing, because in many of our organizations, we don't have the right system. We have the policy. It is there in our website. We can use Excel sheets sometimes. Do we have the right system? That we need to benefit from the secular. Number two, about partnership, I think it's happening now. Agree or disagree, it is happening now. If you just follow a couple of organizations now from our sector, some of them, well, I don't need to say this. So you go just Facebook, follow up, and you will see that there is a huge now partnership. Muslim organizations giving millions to other organizations for different reasons, Mahbub. Some people feel this is the right way to do it, and my name will be clean and nice. And Sah, Dr. Hani, you know this. Some others believe, no. Some others believe, yo, this is the way. Look, I'll tell you now, Gaza example. There's many Muslim charities now. They are not willing to cooperate with other Muslim charities who are strong, doing excellent job in Gaza, like Action for Humanity or others, and willing to give it to the UN agencies to do in their behalf. Many in the UK. And if I want just to be one day more open, I will write all these in our LinkedIn or Facebook post, because this is the reality now.
Yeah. Despite having the CHS certification, yes, which isn't given to everyone, it's it's one of the highest levels, and
exactly. So
you see this happening there. No,
yes,
you're totally right.
You are right. So the standard, like we have CHS, we have other things, and we can help others. And I think others, I'm not talking just about Action for Humanity, but there are some charities, they have a presence there. But however, you go to, and I always challenge them, and this is Dr. Hani, the ethical question. When they raise the money in Islam channel and they give it to XYZ, to UNRWA, they give it to UNICEF, they give it to WHO, I challenge them to say these words in front of the people in the TV. No one can say, we are in this, we are in this, we are in this, but in reality, you are not there. You give it to others. Be open, transparent. And this is part of our, I think, the secular, this is part of our ethical problem that we have in our practice. Thank you, Mahmoud.
Thank you, Brother Osman. Thank you so much there. If you've been waiting to speak, I'm trying our best to accommodate everyone. So thank you for listening. And for those that have joined us, we are in the middle of the main session. Our next question is Zakat as an alternative vision for the aid sector. As we know, and we've alluded to, if Zakat's full mandate is truly realized, it could address long-standing critiques of the aid system, their lack of long-term impact and the whole justice orientation. Question for Lamiz from Muslim Aid. Do you see Zakat as offering a new model or inspiration for the entire humanitarian system itself?
Thanks, Mahmoud. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. And thank you for all the contributions and the really vibrant chat, which if you're not reading, you really should, because I think that's where a lot of the real next step conversations are taking place. To speak to your question, Mahmoud, I think it's actually an old model which we're trying to readdress, I would say. And I think Dr. Mehmet spoke to this really well. I think there's, the Zakat system, in essence, speaks to addressing social inequalities and economic inequalities, and it's about redistribution of wealth. Yes, in its basic way, I guess how Sohail said as well, it's a tax, right? And a working tax system provides equity to society and addresses the needs within a society, and actually, why did charities arise? Why have charities and NGOs grown and the nonprofit sector the way that it has? Because we have an inequitable distribution of wealth. We have injustices left over that have built global systems of debt, trade injustice, economic injustice, etc., that have created health injustice, that have created planetary and environmental injustice, which are all trying to be addressed by the massive growing humanitarian sector over the last 100+ years, and which has demonstrated repeatedly that is inadequate to the task. But also, what we need to remember that UN systems are essentially governmental systems intrinsically linked to global politics, and therefore do not necessarily provide for the justice that we speak about, and don't at its root have the ethical leadership that people like Brother Osman have brought up as well, right? And so what we have here is Zakat as an instrument of ethical leadership, of equitable distribution of wealth, of addressing the challenges. And if we speak about, and I think here there's two sides to it, and I mentioned in the chat, there's how do we immediately address the issues that we have as Zakat collectors and distributors, and the practical issues that we face around standardization, around accountability and transparency, around trust. And then there's the larger issue, which Dr. Mehmet is talking about, and which you've asked me about, is how do we use it to address the inadequacies of the humanitarian system at large? And it's interesting that we're having this conversation right now in 2025 with what we saw in Q1 and Q2 with Trump pulling US aid and the humanitarian reset that we're going through. And all the conversations in the humanitarian reset are about, are we going to consolidate power within existing systems, which are very colonial, very patriarchal power systems, which aren't localized, that don't lead to local-led decision-making? Or are we going to commit to things like the Grand Bargain, which was signed in 2016, and conversations around localization and locally led responses and redistribution of power? And how do we do that? And systems like the current humanitarian system self-reinforce, and that self-reinforcement will lead to entrenching inequalities, which is what we're seeing. So here, what we have in our conversation is to look at, well, actually, Zakat provides us with a model where we can address these things in a different manner. And we know that we have financial power and therefore influential power. And I think this is what lots of different people are speaking to here, Dr. Osman, Dr. Mehmet, others, like we're all speaking to the same issue of how do we use that power to change the way that systems are working. And I think that's actually a bigger question on the table. And that involves not just us here at like charity sector voices, academic voices, that involves governmental voices, big Muslim authorities and powers and countries, and all of these coming together. And these should be conversations that should be happening in those spaces. I know Dr. Hani is doing some of those conversations, and may Allah reward him for that. And I hope that we can add to that in any way we can, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Lamiz. Very succinct and deep at the same time. That's yeah. I don't have anything else further to say on that there. Just looking at the comments to see if there's anything that in response to that. Thank you. We're going straight to local. I believe Dr. Sale has to go shortly. Zakat is traditionally local, as we know, but yet today we're operating across borders, within borders, and regionally as well. A question to Dr. Sahel: what's the significance of this local tie, and can local and international systems complement each other? So rather than there being this either-or situation, how can they complement each other? And I'll bring back Lamiz to this there, back to this answer that what's the practical pathway for localization and what is predominantly a global aid sector? If Dr. Sahel, Dr. Sahel, if you can answer the first question, that would be great.
Okay, thank you very much. And my apologies to everybody, as I unfortunately have to depart in about 5 minutes. But just on this local point, so something I often comment on is that in the very classical fiqh, there's this notion that zakat ideally is localized. Now, that, as far as I see it, is an opportunity and a challenge, even for an organization like NZF. And the reason for that, including all of us, because the classical unit of the local was more like cities, towns, and places. It wasn't UK versus some other country. And when you start thinking along those lines, then I think it can help, for me, answer some of the questions we're raising today about what's the output, the vision, the kind of impact, the kind of representation, because you have a place and there's a place that you are developing. You're developing the people, the identity, the sense of responsibility, and you're almost taking power away from the idea of just the nation state. Like you have something that you're improving and developing. And I feel that I'd be keen, like if he doesn't mind me calling him Sheikh Uthman, I consider him a Sheikh. He was talking about convening some wider conversation. I think the local slots into that very nicely because it's a developmental vision for places, regardless of country then. And I think it slots into developing where I think we can all plug in. And I don't think it should be ignored because when you ignore it, it's very easy for zakat just to become a tool then just to do things with. But if you start thinking about how do you develop places, then I think it's a useful unit of conversation, and we are all equally challenged by that. Sorry, I stuttered on some words. Whether you're an NZF or anything, all of us have a challenge around what is the developmental view. So I think it is part of a traditional vision. I think it's a useful unit for us to work on, and it plugs in very easily to the global agenda. It doesn't at all detract from it personally.
Excellent.
I think
Thank
I
you,
would
Dr.
also agree with that 100%. I think what Brother Uthman Dr. Uthman, Sheikh Uthman has suggested is right. I think this is a much larger consultation, and I think it's a much larger project actually, which where we come together as a community and we look at how is zakat currently zakat is being used as a charitable instrument, a fundraising tool to a huge extent, right? In a very basic fashion. But how do we take it beyond that, and use it in essence as the tool to create wealth redistribution and social equity in the way that we want it? But also, I think to the question of localization, there was some conversation in the chat about having this global governance framework and structure and coming together in agreement on that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think, people are questioning how we can come together on something so standardized. And I think we already have plenty of learning globally on this, on how something which is global can be regionally, nationally, locally contextualized, and have adjustments and flexibility within that. And I think even if we look at Islamic history and we look at how our fiqh is contextualized and how Islamic law has been built and grown to adapt for nuance, difference, change. I think that's completely possible. And I think the challenges are there, but I think that we're up to the challenges. We just need to get stuck into it. And I do agree with some of the chat that requires funding and that we need to step up as a community to fund that change.
it begins and ends with money, unfortunately. Unfortunately, some may say that do the work and the money will come. It's also the other way around as well, where sometimes you do need a baseline of money to get things going. Right. Okay. This is the nature of conversations. They're meant to leave you a bit spinning. I'm just looking at the just thinking which question to go next. Yeah. So if you give me a second. Okay. Justice and balance. It's back to Dr. Ibrahim, if you're still here. Many participants in the survey spoke about justice, adl, and balance, mizan, as central to zakah. How can, this is for Dr. Ibrahim, and to others as well, to chime in, how can international zakat programming truly reflect these two principles of justice and balance in its design and delivery? Dr. Ibrahim can come. Do we have Dr. Ibrahim here? I'll just... Looks like no. Then if he comes on, then we'll give him the time. But in response to this question, we'll make this open floor. Like in the design and delivery of zakat programs, how can international zakat programming reflect justice and balance at the core of its design? If the question has been understood, would anyone like to chime in? Dr. Hani, over to you. You're on mute. That's it.
We'll start with transparency. Number two, we have to negotiate with the right holders as well, to involve them in the designing stage of our projects in the field. Number three is to make partnership with local community and with local player as well, including government, because we don't want to scare the government. Number four is to benefit the local government as well. Actually, with this means that the local government will facilitate our work there, actually. So this is number four. Number five is to invest in research as well as invest in measuring the impact. When you talk about having organization, which coordination organization or communication organization, we suffer badly of maintaining a very small organization called WAF, because people don't donate to small organization. People are, especially in the big charities, unfortunate to say this word, very much attracted to firefighting policy. Today is Gaza, tomorrow Sudan, but they don't think strategically of building communication or the institution. You want to build an institution based on ethics, you have to pay for it. You have to strategically invest in it. And this is unfortunately not happening to most of our organizations who are just responding to firefighting policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hani, for that there. Okay, we are approaching the end of this session. And thank you so much for coming, taking time of your busy day. I know for certain you'll have messages pinging, where's this, where's that? And also for your patience as well and listening carefully and attentively. I'm going to open it up for anyone who hasn't had a chance to speak, especially, but also others as well. For any final comments, what's been occurring for you? And more importantly, how we can move ahead in a meaningful manner. After we do this, then we'll hand it over to the brothers Ali and Adil from Amanafy, who'll go on to, and I recommend you stay for this. It's a really important session on a few words on the importance of tech and how it can facilitate everything what we've discussed at the micro and the macro level. Before that, open the floor to it for any final concluding remarks.
Brother Mahbub. if possible, in these 2-3 minutes, just the way forward. So if any suggestion, any recommendation, because I know Dr. Hani and with his great team, mashallah, they will continue the work. But it will be good in the next any suggestion.
Agreed, yeah, let's do that.
That will help, inshallah.
Thank you, Brother Uthman. Yeah, so forward-thinking ideas there. Brother Ayub, you have your hand up there. Ayub Mo, I think it's Ayub Muhammad there.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for this conversation. It's been really good and very much needed. I've been speaking with a few charity leaders about increasing efficiency, because I think that's a clear area in which we can definitely improve. And my personal opinion is that the next step is most definitely a Muslim think tank being set up. We can start it as UK only, initially, whereby it provides a framework for UK charities to follow. And then it also, well, what we also need is that it needs to be led by very strategic entrepreneurial minds. Because, for example, areas which are not the most efficient right now are the fact that we have a lot of replication. For example, each charity has its own finance team. Each charity has its legal team. Each charity has like its own social media team. But and that leads to a lot of replication in wages as well, and also inefficiencies. We can have like, for example, charities do need some personalization. So I'm not saying we should bring everything under one roof, but core roles that don't really need to be personalized, such as finances or video editing. Like, I'm sure each charity has these different areas which can very much be done by a core group. And then the charities can then just employ, in my opinion, the CEO, so the face of the company, who personalizes it to the donors, but essentially all the back end stuff happen by one let's not say global for now, but one national agency, one charity operations agency that does all the back office stuff that doesn't need to be independently done and replicated by every single charity.
Thank you then. So a shared resources macro model there. Anyone else? We're going to keep it to no more than a minute.
Mahbub, just one point. In the
Yes,
US,
Osman.
I think we need to benefit from the US experience, USA.
We do, yes.
Because there are 2-3 organizations. One of them is, I think, the Zakat Institute. And now the Zakat Foundation now, it has institute as well, where they provide scholarship for PhD, master in the area of Zakat. So I think to link with them and benefit from their experience.
Yes.
The other one, I think one of those who were interviewed during the process, Dr. Shariq Siddiqui from Indiana University.
That's the name that came to my head just now as you were speaking.
Yes. So I had long discussion with him last night. We are very close friends, and I wrote many points to discuss today, but there's no time for this. But inshallah, I think someone like Brother Siddiqui, if we share with him the outcome of the discussion of this meeting, he might be able to give other suggestions. So I think because they are a little bit ahead in the US, they have institutions, especially this Zakat institution and institute and Zakat Foundation. So I think something like that may be part. And then you suggested retreat. If we can put some money, all those who attended to the different charities, the retreat will be another. But ultimate goal, we should have an institute that deal with all of this. And one day
totally
I believe
with you.
that Dr. Suhail to be there. We just full-time thinker to put him in this institute. This is what I believe.
So practically speaking, you've just picked on the wrong person for this there. May I follow up with you there in the first instance, and we'll swap details afterwards and to really bring this to life. I've already pictured a plan. Literally, it's just joining up people together as Dr. Hani and Fatima have done and their team. We just need to make sure that that's replicated. I'd like to follow up with you personally on that. So I will reach out via Nihad from your team, and then we'll take that.
Inshallah, I'm currently in Canada, but inshallah I'll be back. Inshallah,
that's fine. I'll go where you are, wherever you are. I'll find you. So thank you so much. There. Anyone else at all? Quick fire.
There was
Mehmet, yes.
Artik, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few
And
screens.
then we will move to the brothers from Amanafai, inshallah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It was really amazing, just like a meeting. We got lots of insight about the development in the zakah and especially institutionalizations of the zakah. I have a concern in terms of that. I have just like heard lots of this like words like efficiency in zakah, in managing just like the zakah fund and etc. I have a really interesting story recently I got from my friends, and he was having this like a concern to just like sending his donation to Sudan and some other just like a country, and sending his qurbani to another country and etc. Because it was efficient, because it was just like easy to just like donate on computer base and etc. But at the same time, it's the same person, and I've known there are lots of things like a lots of just like a poorly family and his in his neighborhood actually needs those funds as well. And my question is actually, are we losing the objective and the political dimension of the zakah and waqf and the qurbani as well? Because the harmony is not taking place in the local sense, in the neighborhood level. How can we just like achieve that global level harmony at the same times? As a kind of drawbacks of this institutionalizations, like the objective actually. Thank you.
Right, let me unmute myself. It's always the most thoughtful ones which are saved for last, and that's a great question. But I think one thing with Fatima before we go on to Amanify, and thank you so much for waiting, is that a lot of these unanswered questions, I think we should go through them and find a way to share these, not just questions for question's sake, but a forum where this online, where this conversation in a practical way can continue.
Inshallah.
Without
Inshallah.
further ado, last but by certainly but no means least, we have our brothers Ali Sajjad and Adil Ali. I've always get the names, I have to think about what's saying. So Adil and Ali are the co-founders of Amanify. Basically, they're an Islamic technology company, redefining how people can give effectively and manage their donations. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Adil and Ali, who will explain how tech can really bind together and really accelerate our efforts. Over to you guys.
So I think one of the blessings of being older is that I can go first. So I would just, one of the challenges, Mahbub, of being in the room with so many great minds is that I've completely flipped what I was going to say. So I'm going to do what Dr. Uthman said at the beginning, not stick to the topic, but I will do. But I'm just going to sum up just a few kind of thoughts that I've got, inshallah, based upon the conversations, and then I'll pass it over to, inshallah, Adil. So firstly, from my perspective, before tech solutions, it's been collaborations from scholars, from charities and tech companies. So it's not really just a coding challenge at all. So there's three kind of overarching points which I picked up, which I do want to kind of just summarize and just kind of add into that tech domain, is that Adil Badidi said, he said we need to take the lead and own the bar. Dr. Mahmoud said the impact of the domination of corporations impacting zakah, and also Dr. Uthman, he said that we need a collective around zakah and we need institutions. So the challenge with the Muslim tech outfits is that we're still trying to level up. Now, the challenge with this is that, post all these kind of the issues with Gaza and the genocides, is that a lot of the Muslims now were building our own tables, and it's going to take time to kind of level up. But the beauty about leveling up is then you can innovate, and once you innovate, then you can influence. Because I know Dr. Uthman, mashallah, has really kind of emphasized the element of influence. So I think we're at the stage where the Muslim tech companies are trying to kind of really get to the level where we can kind of innovate. We need probably a good few years to get to that stage where we've leveled up, then we can innovate, and inshallah we can influence. Because once we influence them, then as like our voices together as Muslims can be heard. The other element I want to touch upon is just building out the ecosystem. So many of you may have seen that, during these recent issues with the Gaza, that there are a lot of issues. So not just administrating zakah, but the collection of money as well, zakah, sadaqah. So there's kind of fundraising platforms which are blocking fundraisers going to certain causes, payment gate down accounts as well. So not only is the issue of administrating zakah, there's an issue of collecting zakah in the first place as well. So it's just more than an issue of zakah administration, but we need to go back and really kind of own the whole ecosystem. So then once we own the ecosystem, inshallah, we can collect zakat correctly, then inshallah, we can administer it as well. So, and again, the long-term influence is there. So from my perspective, there's that issue of leveling up. Once we level up, we can influence, but we do need some time. And at the same time, just building out the ecosystem amongst the Muslims. That's something which I'm quite passionate about, so we can kind of really own the narrative. So, from my perspective, fantastic, alhamdulillah, seminar. I think we've not come to the table with solutions because what we need is to speak to everyone here and just really understand what the problems are as charities, as people who are fundraising, and then as tech kind of orchestrations, inshallah, we can build out kind of solutions for everyone when it comes to zakat. So great to connect. And inshallah, I think really if we, Mahbub, as the brothers and sisters said, if we can move this forward and really have an avenue where we can connect, really understand their problems, and inshallah, we can bring out some great solutions. But Jazakumullah khair, that's just some of the overarching points I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Ali, for that there. Thank
No,
you.
Jazakallah khair to everyone as well. I feel really inspired after this. I didn't know how it was going to go. I thought we'd all be sat in the same room together. And then I realized this week it was online. So, even though it was, the amount of benefit and knowledge that's just come out from this, subhanAllah, Allah reward you all and accept all the good work that we're doing as well. We did prepare a few slides, but I don't want to do one of those death by PowerPoint kind of things. So I'll try and make it a bit more conversational. I will share my screen and I will fly through some of the things that we did prepare. So who are we? We are Amanify, and we're basically Muslim-led tech partner for Muslim charities and mosques. And we help not just with their fundraising, but with transparency and integrity. And that's why we've called ourselves Amanify. You've seen Shopify, Spotify, and now you've got Amanify. We want to help build trust and transparency between organizations and their donors. Some of the success that we've had, subhanAllah, since last Ramadan, we're only 2 years young, so we've been around, myself and Ali, for about 15 years in the corporate world. But the last 2 years, we've helped raise $8 million for charities in UK, USA, and Canada. And we've been the tech partner for the Gates Foundation project that they're doing with every pregnancy. And that's helped raise $34 million for mothers and babies around the world. And we've got over 50 charity partners that work with us. So what we've been observing in this space is that, like Dr. Hani said, people give quick and they want quick proof of what's going on. So they expect that immediacy and the proof of impact. And the majority of charities are now moving away from Excel, like somebody said, and moving to digital first systems. But one of the things that is key is that data ethics and privacy are becoming urgent issues. At the end of the day, donors want to know where their money goes as quickly as possible and as clearly as possible. So what we try to do is listen to the scholars, the experts in Zakat, Sadaqah, and Waqf, and different areas, and build tools that empower their admins and not replace them. We don't want to change everything that you've done. We just want to layer on and add on to what you've got in place at the moment. So we've been partnering with big charities, small charities, different sizes, and build tools to help them manage their communities a lot better. Now, some of the things that we've seen when it comes to zakat are opportunities for transparency. For example, donors can track their impact. So, for example, part of our technology allows the user to see once the donation's been received, you get a little bit of feedback, and then almost like a timeline, they can see what's going on with it. And, these are the levels that we should be at, inshallah, when we get to the stage and we've got the infrastructure to kind of do it. And the donors can also request updates from you guys, and then you can pitch them back to them. We need to showcase impact, not just at that kind of level there, but at a macro level as well. We need to help donors give better by using calculators and different things, and about different ways that they could give through their mobile apps and whatever else. But one of the things which was mentioned, which was almost like the partners on the ground need tools as well to also be able to administer their funds as well. And we've come up with a few ideas, but I think one of the key things that we want to do is speak to some of you guys after this to see if there's anything where you think there's a gap where, for example, if there was a mobile app on the ground that people could scan and interact and disseminate and share funds, for example, and maybe not through your typical fiat currencies, but crypto, for example, that might be an option for different types of projects. But those are the conversations that we'd love to have. Now, this is where we need to be careful. It isn't just about speed and features, it really is about responsibility. And we need to make sure that there's no misuse of donor data and, the recipient data as well. So, for example, what is the infrastructure that that information is stored on, who really truly owns it. Everything goes back to the Stripes, the Microsofts, the Googles, and et cetera, et cetera. And even that, we need to try and work out how can we build an infrastructure that's going to help us to kind of take control back to ourselves. And the thing with the zakat as well, we need to ensure that it's spiritually grounded and not just transactional, which is clearly what we have been discussing today as well, subhanAllah. So look, we as a company understand the values and sensitivities of zakat and sadaqah and the different types of giving, and we just build solutions built rooted in trust, transparency, and with intention as well. So what we're trying to do is create this ecosystem which is built by Muslims for Muslims, and we want to collaborate with scholars, charities, and technologists and set those global standards like has been discussed in the chat. It's not a transaction, it's an act of worship when it comes to zakat, and that's why our approach to tech has to be different. It can't be the same as the way that it's being built by other firms as well. So, as I mentioned, we want to collab, we want to speak to you guys, inshallah, when the time is right. But Jazakallah khair, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm open for any questions, but if you want to take a quick screenshot of that, we'll drop our emails in the chat as well, inshallah, if anybody wants to have a discussion. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakumullah khairan. Shukran. Thank you for everyone for your patience. And yes, we've been running off time. And subhanAllah, as everybody said, these kind of conversations and questions is not something that we can finish in 2 hours. So maybe inshallah with your support and contribution, we can help, continue this in a phase 2, go deeper, inshallah. And we are at WAF committed, inshallah, to continue this kind of consultation, this kind of questions. But this very important topic, as we can't deny, it's about our religion as Muslims. It's one of the pillars of Islam. Thank you for the wide range of voices. Thank you for the contribution through the chat. The chat was amazing, mashallah. I have your email addresses. I assume everyone as they register to enter the meeting. So inshallah, we will stay in touch, send you the copy of the report. Looking ahead, we aim to explore how we can together, inshallah, work on how to foster a shared vision for zakah, how to create more systems, approaches to administer zakah, because we all agree there is just no one system that will work for all. We warmly welcome your contribution, your continued support, collaboration, engagement as we work together, inshallah, to uphold justice and social justice and balance through zakah. Jazakumullahu khairan. And inshallah, we will end the meeting now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.